terms of public safety issues, but I think when you hear what's going on, you will feel better at least about knowing where we are and how they're being addressed. You certainly will not feel better that our community is suffering through these things as others are, but we'll talk about some of the root cause and other things. I want to make sure and open up with everyone understanding that while we'll explain some of those things, this is a no excuse meeting. We're going to be talking some hard stuff here today, and I think I don't know it all will come from my guys' mouths and girls' mouths, but there might be some tough talk, but that's okay, and this is the place to do it. I do want to pick up on something Gary Johnson started on at the council. We have a community that is hurting itself by only talking about bad things, but Alexandria down, only talking negatively about the community when there's so much good that happens. And part of what I think Mr. Johnson was entreating people to think about, and it's something that I just need for folks to understand. We started these meetings with the public on public safety, but the way I open them up, and I have a slide deck, it's on the transparency tab online. You can click and look at it. Is that you got to stop saying only how bad things are and start caring about the solutions to fix it. So it is fine to point out how we have problems, because you can't fix them without pointing out. But if your idea is that government, the council or the mayor or the police chief can snap a finger and solve this issue, I'll just make it easy. One of the recent issues is two guys pull up at a gas station island. They get out and shoot. Someone innocent gets hit. We're going to talk about each of those people in that and what happened, which we don't normally do. We're going to unpack some stuff today. But there's no way for anyone to predict the two people showing up at a gas station island. So when I see what's the mayor doing as though the election of a person would stop crime, or especially you guys, your job is to appropriate, to listen, make policy, hear what we're doing, make changes if you need to, but that is the role. It is totally unfair to a council member to call a council member and say, it looks like drug activities across the street. What are you going to do about it? The council member responds back, have you called the police? Oh, no, I'm not going to bother them. But they're calling a council member. As though Cynthia or Gary or Reddick could stop it, or you two. You've got to call the police. And then if you get no response, there's consequences from the council or the mayor for our people that work for us, that do a great job and sacrifice for us if they're not doing their job. But that, I suspect, won't be the case. You got to give us information. Domestic issues are unpredictable for us. We're going to give you data to starkly show that point. If someone goes and attacks a domestic partner or domestic relationship, there's no amount of intel, data, predictive policing that they're going to have that says, on this date, Sandra's going over to the new girlfriend of her boyfriend's house and there's going to be a shooting. But the only way you could dig into some of that is what Gary said, you got to participate. If people know that people are at risk and have things to say, see something, say something. We talk about it in terms of terrorism and all. We're not talking about it enough on a local level. If you know someone's at risk because their boyfriend has been beating on them, and you hear it and know they're going to get them, and you do nothing, look, it's not a crime at the state level, but it's not moral. If someone gets killed over that, you could have said something. I would hope we would. But we all have to be part of the solution. If you think government can resolve the issues we're having simply by being government, I'm not supposed to be political, y'all can't be, but I'm just going to say, this administration and this particular council is the best get along I've seen, and I've been at it a little bit. you think your idea is to send someone because they simply say, I'll represent change, when we're all trying to build a cohesive plan, is going to resolve the city's problems, you are sadly mistaken. You can take that as you want. If you think it's endorsing whatever, it's not. I'm just, part of our problem is people have decided that you don't run for things, you not people off of things, and it's not helping our community. We need to have time to address serious issues that have developed. And you can have plenty of room to blame how we got here or anything else, but I can tell you there were a bunch of decisions, and I have not been shy about saying it, that were made in the last 4 years that were not done by this council, but was done by an administration, and they were mistakes. Okay. I'm not trying to be arrogant, mean, or anything else. Facts are facts, and we're going to talk facts today, data and facts, and we're going to answer any questions that you guys have. If it's something in the middle of a hard investigation, or it's that intelligence protected for now, we're going to say that, but we're going to try to unpack as much as we can say about why that is. We need to get information. The one biggest change I've seen in our community policing efforts and what we would call focus deterrence, the things that you do by having a safe Alex go in the neighborhoods, no offense to our guys, but so people will give intel to a non-police officer instead of you with your regalia on, your badge, your gun. When I left before, it was functioning and going. Everett, all those guys, Gary, I mean, they tell me that people won't even talk to them now. So it used to be we had that developed to gain intel, not through the police, but the interactions were there. Nobody wants to talk to anybody about anything. And let me just, as the pastor says, watch this. Then guess what you see? You see retaliation occurring not through the criminal justice system where you go to an officer and get someone arrested, but you see families from 30 years old down knowing a kid's involved in something. They're part of the retaliation. I have seen these cases. They're part of allowing the retaliation, to be clear. They're aware that kid has a gun. They're aware that cousin got shot. They're aware of what the Street Justice Committee is going to decide. Okay. So that's our start about the criminal stuff. I'm going to switch gears real quick because this is irrelevant and go through some other things for my council that I think is in fact doing a good job and is in fact committed to try to help and get things done. No one changed their protocols and meeting rules at the last meeting on September on Tuesday. I have it wrong in here, but that didn't happen. Their rules are still the same. What did change is the enforcement of the existing rules through lots of discussions about making sure that we start treating public comment as it's supposed to be public comment. That does not mean you can't ask a question. If you take the mic here and talk and do public comment, your public comment can be a question you won't answer. It doesn't, however, mean you get to engage in a debate to see who knows what about what and try to befool and make fun of people, especially when a lot of the stuff said, again, you guys can't say it, but I can. 99% of what's happening, that's political. Those are people involved in political campaigns who are here, just so you know, because they are. And they're here to thwart you, to do anything they can to trip you up. Guess what? The First Amendment says they can be. They can be. But it also allows you to have rules of decorum that say they can't take your meeting up through. And so we were asked by all of you individually, no straw vote, no secret room, no anything. We just call after call, and it sounded like we had some agreement. Please enforce our current rules. Help us do it. I know what they're saying. They're trying to divide us. They're trying to say the mayor's running y'all or y'all. None of that's happening. They don't know the calls I get from you guys and the help that you want. I don't control your meeting, and that's the lowest watermark of what I can do is when we're in this room in a council meeting, and it's the highest of your authority. 4 votes doesn't do anything. Just about. But you ought to be able to have a meeting. published all these rules. They're on the board back there. You can read them again, but Channel 4 has limitations. You can't come in here and be obscene. You can't come in here and disrupt so much that y'all can't have a meeting. What is the line on disruption versus robust free speech? The justice on the Supreme Court have a tough time defining that for us. They kind of leave it to common sense. I could never tell you that line. I wish I could. I think it goes something like this. You know when you see it. You know when your meeting's getting so disrupted that it's not fair, right? I think there's also a misunderstanding about Robert's rules and how things happen when there's a presiding officer. Each council chairperson, when you're having a committee meeting, is the presiding officer. When they make a ruling on parliamentary procedure, it's I'm going to be critical here. You guys should never call that with each other. You may not like how they call it, but you should leave it and deal with that when you're a full council before change rule, do whatever. But when a committee chair says something, or the president, that is the presiding officer. That's the final ruling when it comes to procedure. If you don't like their interpretation, it shouldn't be about here. It should be a change in your rule. Or you vote, someone moves to overcall what the presiding officer does. Then you have to have 4 votes to do it. But I caution any of you to do it. The decision you make when you elect your president at that time is to let that person have their year to run it. Within reason, obviously, you're not going to let someone take you over. But if you don't like them, vote them out. Because if you're only taking the presiding officers and getting it about some of the people coming in front of you guys won't. They're trying to make y'all fight. I hope you see that. Because they are. And I know you get stuck within your heart wanting to let every person talk because you do. So why? You never know what good is. Something comes out of something that's great. But guys, I know that a lot of what's happening is these are people that are engaged actively right now in a political campaign. And they're sitting with their campaign person right next to them. And they're coming in here to disrupt them. And they're telling you always that this is what the people want. You were elected to say what, I mean, that's your job. Sitting up here, okay. We're not going to get into anything about content. We're not going to let you run afoul of it either. And frankly, I think y'all are super lenient about it. And which you think is germane and not. Way more than any council in the state, you guys are lenient on what is germane. Because we have one person that comes to every one of your meetings and speaks on every subject. And I'm close to 100% of what he says is not germane. Or at least starts out one way and it ends up not germane. Now, having said all that, moving forward, I'm telling the public today, on behalf of the council, I am an agent for in some roles, and in this one, the council has expressed its intent individually to me and others to change its rules with regard to public comment periods, with regard to reflecting those comment periods with congruity or like other comparable public bodies do. They have not presented any final stuff to us. They have not, but I will tell the public they are looking at doing that. If you have, real concerns about that, you can follow our procedure we've outlined. Give us stuff. I will give it faithfully to the council here. Every comment you make, you can come here and debate it. You can do it whatever you want, but council rules, remember, that's another area where y'all have the right to have your own rules of how you operate. That's different from an ordinance on the budget, etc. We're going to go over that at the proper time, but that's another place with a watermark of your authority to make your own governing rules. You think the House and the Senate and the legislature meet and invite people to come tell them how to run their chamber? This is where you have a lot of authority, and you should. You were elected to come here and do that. You can be unelected if someone doesn't like what you're doing. But you can't have people in the audience who are super council members. They have, in some instances, more authority and time to talk than you guys do. That makes no sense. If someone in here can speak to you from the audience, yell at you from the audience, yell at staff to answer questions from the audience, that's a lack of decorum. It shouldn't be allowed. It's disruptive to doing business. creates animosities that aren't needed. It's just not how you do things. Having said all that, you got to give room for people to talk. All right, so moving on from that. I have it in the order of the public safety updates, but since that's so important, I'm just going to move that. We had a meeting with Gatus. Some of you were there. I had been talking to you about doing it. It went really well. Not all of you were able to make it, but I've tried to talk to each of you individually about how it went. I hope we're making some progress. We're able to talk through some things. I'm available to each of you who want to talk more about it. I reiterated to them that any commissioner can call a meeting with us and do whatever they want, and we'll sit down. I did note that they do have an idea on the grant part. You remember we kind of talked about three buckets: true economic development that's value added, bringing new dollars in; community development that could include housing initiatives, etc. And the final bucket being quality of life initiatives, which is all those grants that are kind of the thing that's driven it. They kind of want to change the percentages of how they do that to reflect the statute. That's a good thing, but they want to make sure we're not letting any of our community people that need things miss it. We think that among in between Tanya's community services, what Lisa did for so many years, and what we know about what the city can do, what the CBB can fund and do, and what Ada can do, we ought to all have those staffs talking and having some uniform rules, like this goes in that bucket, this goes in that bucket. And so we're going to be working on that. Therefore, that they all wanted it to. That was a good thing. So my update on GATE is I'm taking it off my list. I talk about it every week. For now, I'm pulling it off. I think things are moving in a better direction. They took several votes that were unanimous in some of these changes, even after robust debate. They look pretty good. Public safety. All right, let's get into it. So the first thing I want to say is my own philosophy, you guys, that some of you may have heard or not. I believe that all citizens are of constitutional right entitled to a safe city. I believe that public safety is a fundamental civil right. Public safety is a fundamental civil